Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. I am your host, Brett McCullum, and I am here today with Adriel Shu, and today we're going to talk about pivoting in the market. So before we do, guys, at Investor Fuel, we help real estate investors, service providers, and real estate entrepreneurs to 2 to 5x their businesses to allow them to build the businesses they've always wanted and allow them to live the lives they've always dreamed of. Without further ado, Adriel, how are you, man?
Doing good. How are you, Brett?
Doing good, man. Thanks for being here with me today. I'm excited to talk with you, man.
Me too. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, so we called up a little bit kind of pre-show, got to know you a little bit, what you do, how you're doing it. And, we mentioned pivoting and stuff. We're going to get into all of that. Before we do, though, let's rewind a bit, catch people up to speed. Who's Adriel?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in California and then went to college in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. And after I graduated college is when I started looking into real estate. So I just moved to Texas to start my first job out of college. But at the time, I knew I wanted to not work that 9-to-5 office job for the rest of my life. So that's when I started looking into real estate investing. I looked into drop shipping, e-commerce, and other stuff, but I didn't really understand it. It was maybe too tech savvy, too internet for me. But real estate is such a simple concept of, buying it at a right price and then selling it for a higher price. And then that's when I started just going all in on real estate.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So you're out in California, you graduate. That's already a big leap to go from California to Atlanta.
Right.
Yeah.
Some culture shock.
Yeah. Where in California are you from?
In the Bay Area, about 30 minutes from Oakland.
Okay.
45 minutes from San Francisco.
So
yes.
Big city's not so much of a shift because, Georgia Tech's downtown Atlanta, right?
Right.
So yeah. I lived in Georgia for quite a while.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've been through, obviously been through Atlanta many, many, many times. And one of my favorite places, I have to say, if you were at Tech, so it was the Varsity.
Right.
Dude,
it's an icon.
It is, right? It's like, man, you got to get their chili dogs are to me, the best.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not the healthiest, but super delicious.
No, gosh, no, they're terribly unhealthy. Guys, if you're listening, they're terribly unhealthy. That's a disclaimer. But they are so good. And the lines I've never been to the Varsity where it's not been slam packed full of everything. It's amazing how busy it is. But anyway, so you went to Tech and I remember us talking pre-show. What was your degree in?
Yeah, so I got a degree in environmental engineering. Okay. And basically I got a job with Shell, the oil company.
Wow.
But they didn't have any really openings for my degree. And they had a joint venture with Saudi Aramco, and it was called Motiva. And they have refineries in Port Arthur, Texas, which is an hour and a half from Houston.
Okay.
And they kind of said, hey, look, we can put you here if you want it. And I figured, okay, first job out of college, I can't, really be that picky.
Right.
Middle of nowhere, but I decided, okay, I'll go there. And then that's where I drove from Atlanta to Port Arthur, Texas.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
And that's where I started my 9-to-5 job. This is in 2016. January 2016 was when I started.
Okay.
And that's the same time I started really digging into listening to Bigger Pockets, other real estate type of podcasts or internet resources, and started learning about real estate.
Gotcha. So, and I'm sorry to keep kind of digging back to it a little bit. So what was the job? What was your first job there? What did you do?
Yeah. So basically, I did environmental compliance. And so they're an oil and gas company. It's really just basically seeing what the legal limit of how much we can pollute and making sure we don't pollute above the limit. So there wasn't much engineering involved. It was more just trying to make sure that however we're operating the refinery is within the limits of the EPA and the TCEQ, which is the Texas Commission of Environmental Quality, and just making sure, we're not polluting too much.
So, and I cannot remember, I know it's got to be around the 2016 time. When was the big oil spill? Do you remember when that was?
Which oil spill? I mean, there's a lot of oil spills.
The BP one. Was
it? Okay, that was before 2016. But yes, that was.
I knew. I was like, I can't remember when it was, but I bet. And I was thinking, I bet there's what you were doing is probably enlarged because of a lot of the, aftermath of that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So, and then you started digging into the Bigger Pockets thing. You started doing that. I'm going to say, at risk of saying something a little bit forward, okay, most people don't just go, well, let me start listening to Bigger Pockets. What kind of, how did you get to that mentality? Was it always something you have any history from it, like family stuff? Like what?
Yeah. So there's no history. I do remember when I was a kid, my dad would pick up this, back when they had those booths with the real estate magazines back, before Zillow and HAR. My dad would always just look at houses, just picking up those magazines in the streets of San Francisco and stuff. And like I said, I was looking at side hustles / alternative ways to make money besides my job during my internships during college. So I had already looked at stuff, like I said, e-commerce, drop shipping, and real estate. And that's kind of, you always hear real estate makes the most millionaires and it's been around forever. So I kind of decided, hey, let me look into this more. And then that just off Google searching ended up coming across Bigger Pockets. And then eventually ended up reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. So that's all happened more or less while I was searching for what else can I do besides working 40 years at a 9-to-5 job.
Right. Yeah. That's why I was wondering, because I went to work and now I'm an investor. I'm like, there's always a trend. There's always a story to be had. How long were you working there in Port Arthur before you said, you know what, it's time to go full time?
Yeah, so I worked there for just over 5 years, under 5.5 years, from 2016 to 2021. And I was basically working my day job during the day and then real estate on nights and weekends.
Yeah.
And it worked out pretty well when I first got there because, like I said, Shell had kind of just pushed me there because they had nowhere else to put me, even though I passed, the hiring stuff. And the people there at the refinery, they weren't hiring at the time, the environmental department. So I came in, they're like, well, there's nothing really for you to do because we're fully staffed. So, and they were like, oh, new graduate, he doesn't know anything. So I had a very easy role, let's say, my first, 4 or 5 years at the company.
Yeah.
And that, so it was stress-free. I wasn't working overtime. And really, I would actually do real estate work at work because my work stuff, I finished in a couple hours and they're like, well, there's nothing much for you to do. So instead of just,
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency. It's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
Sitting on your hands.
Scrolling on my phone, sitting at my hands. I would learn about real estate or, look on Zillow and just do small stuff, working on the real estate business at work. And that's kind of how I kept working there, because it wasn't that stressful in terms of time commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting, all the benefits, and it was basically a 6-figure salary also. So it was I was living off the income from my day job. And that way, the money I made in the real estate business, I could reinvest it 100% back into real estate to grow faster, or take more risk, because if I did lose money, hey, I had a safety net to fall back on.
Smart. What was the first your first transaction, and what was it?
Right. So
was it flip? What did you do first?
Yeah. So, listening to Bigger Pockets, everyone says you need to get an off-market deal to get a good deal, right? So that was kind of ingrained in my head. And I started out doing direct mail. So I started out sending letters, and I was getting, letters back, and in my apartment mailbox was getting full, and I was learning, how to basically market. And it took me 6 months. I was doing direct mail, getting leads in, and I'm sure looking back now, some of those leads are probably deals, but I just didn't know any better on analyzing. I didn't have MLS access, and here in Texas, being a non-disclosure state, right, it was all a guessing game for me. And it was just kind of a struggle, but like I said, I was using all the extra money from my job to pay for direct mail. And at the same time, I was going to real estate meetups in my area just to network and connect. And I actually ended up getting my first deal from buying it from a wholesaler from my local real estate meetup group.
Wow, good for you. So
I was spending 6 months on direct mail marketing, and ended up buying a deal from a wholesaler, not even from my own marketing.
I mean, that happens, right?
Yeah,
but also, I mean, I think it's yes, you were doing the marketing and doing the work, but I am a firm believer that if you weren't doing that work, that deal would have never come in front of you anyway. So
right, you make your own luck.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't like that just happened. You didn't happen upon it. You were putting in work that led to that. So I take a very extreme view that says, yeah, your marketing still worked. Like it did.
Right.
That's my opinion. Because you're like, well, I didn't get the ROI from the mail, but it did. It's called the law of reciprocity.
Right.
So, yeah, man, good for you on that. So you did your first deal. Was it a flip, or did you buy and hold? What did you do with it?
Yeah. So since I was on Bigger Pockets so much, everything they preach on Bigger Pockets, at least back in 2016, was the BRRRR strategy. Yep. So I figured, okay, I'm just going to do a BRRRR strategy. And this house was a full gut renovation. And the reason I even bought it was because when the wholesaler sent me the contract price, it was for $17,000 for the house.
Okay.
And on the county appraisal district website, just the land value alone on the appraised value was $24,000. So I figured, okay, worst case, at least I'm getting it cheaper than the land value. I mean, the house probably should have been a teardown looking back on it, but I ended up doing a full rehab, and then basically about $100,000 all in.
Okay.
Bad contractor, stuff like that. The typical things you're going to go through trying to flip or renovate houses as a beginner. And then did a cash out refinance, straight from the book, from the BRRRR strategy with a local credit union. And then the biggest, I guess, eye-opening part for me was when I was trying to lease up the property. It was such a headache, such a time drain, doing showings, people flake. Yeah. I was trying to save a penny and said I'll self-manage it. It's just one house.
Yeah.
And then ended up finding a tenant. They moved in, but a month or two later, their job relocated them. And they had to break the lease and move out. And then back again to the whole leasing and showing thing. And I finally said, look, let me try to sell this as a rent to own. But, technically that's illegal in Texas, I think after the 2008, 2010 Dodd-Frank thing. So it had to be a right of first refusal instead of a rent to own.
Yep.
basically giving them, first dibs on if I ever sell the property.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
And luckily, I got a great tenant. They had it was an older couple. They just had a small dog. Kids were gone. Credit score was terrible, but that's the whole point of doing rent to own. And they were there for 4 years. Never, always paid rent early. Never had an issue unless something crazy happened. Like one time, a freeze came and all the pipes burst under the house. But besides that, they were great tenants, and they actually did end up buying the house, because I know a lot of times these rent to owns, the tenants don't ever really qualify to buy it.
Yeah.
But eventually they did. So yeah, that's how
That's really rewarding too, though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I never was planning to sell it to anyone else, even though it was a right of first refusal, and I could have, put it on the market and just gave them first dibs. I kind of knew, hey, they're not bothering me. They're paying the rent on time. Whenever they're ready, I'll sell it to them. Or if they move, then hey, I'll sell it on the market.
And then they did. I love the fact that they did, though. That's great. So you learned a lot on that first one, man. You went through a lot.
Yes.
A lot of things on that. But all right, let's start fast forwarding a little bit here. So you've done your first deal. You're dipping your toe in the water. Eventually, you're working at this 9 to 5 for 4 or 5 years. You said 5 years. And now, what year is it? And you're full time.
So I guess this would be coming up on year 4 on the full time.
Okay.
Because I quit in June of 2021, and then we're coming up on it in 2025.
So you go full time at that point in time. Let's say the June 2021. Now that you're full time, what did the business look like? What were you focused on?
Yeah. So at that time, the market was very hot in 2021.
Yep.
And I had just picked up 2 multifamily properties in 2020. So I was stabilizing those properties. One of them was a full gut renovation on a 21 unit here in Houston. And I picked that up near the end of 2020. So in the summer of 2021, the renovations were in progress. And at the same time, the wholesaling and flipping was still going on. And I'll backtrack a bit. So after that first deal, how I mentioned the headaches of leasing up and property management, I ended up deciding to pivot to just flipping houses, because I figured, hey, this $100 a month cash flow is not really doing much for me, especially since I'm making, 6 figures at my job. So let me just start flipping houses and build that capital up faster. Little did I know appreciation and all that was working in the background, but I was so ingrained on bigger pockets. Hey, never buy for appreciation. Appreciation is just a bonus. Don't expect it. So I was just looking at it as, this cash flow isn't really doing much for me. Let me just flip and wholesale and make a bigger check right away, which that's what I was doing ever since that first deal through 2018, 19. And that's what I continued to do after I quit my day job.
Okay. Wow. Incredible, man. Yeah. I mean, and we talked about introducing the show of like pivoting and that sort of thing. And now, so 21, and it's a hot market into 2022 even, and then we start getting, I don't know when, is it mostly out of Houston? Where do you do a lot of your deals at?
Yeah, mainly in Houston. Now I do kind of all over Texas. I do quite a few deals in Dallas and Houston and San Antonio. Not really much in Austin, maybe a handful. But right now I'm all over Texas. But at the time was mainly Houston and then the Beaumont, Port Arthur area, which is where I started.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, and the reason I ask is I don't know what the market was doing like in the last little bit,
Right.
But when things start shifting, rates going higher, here in Florida where I live, insurance goes, way up.
Yes.
All that stuff. It really starts to impact margins and hold times and, you name it. Right. And so when did you start pivoting and start adjusting some of the stuff?
Right.
Yeah.
So, like I said, my first pivot was right after that first deal into wholesaling and flipping.
Uh-huh.
And then right at that time, always wanted to get into multifamily. And I got my first apartment complex in 2018, a 14 unit. And then 2020 acquired two more. But right when the rates were going up in 2022 is kind of when everything went dry in the commercial space, as the sellers were still expecting 2021 prices,
Right.
but nothing was in line. And as you mentioned, the insurance and taxes going up, that came into play later for me, at least. My multifamily properties got huge increases last year and this year, which is really killing all the cash flow, to be honest. But luckily I have them for more tax benefits. The depreciation and the bonus depreciation I took on them helps offset my active income and the wholesaling and flipping side. But yeah, that's kind of the pivot was in 2022. I noticed it really dried up because the sellers were still, stuck at their appraised values in 21 and early 22. And the whole time, I've always approached commercial the same way I approach single family, where I want to get an off market, doesn't have to be off market, but a deal. And at the time when everyone was doing these syndications of multifamily, essentially they're still just buying it on market. I get pocket deals from the brokers, but you're still really paying market price or more. But everyone was doing well because the market was going up, right? The cap rate compressions. So I was always still, I guess, more conservative. I said, no, I still need it, at a discount. And that's how I got those smaller multifamilies, because those owners are less sophisticated than, let's say, when you're buying those 100+ units.
Right.
So I was still able to get them below market value. And that's kind of what's helped me right now still have these properties, is because I got them at such a low basis that I can still afford to weather the storm with the high interest rates. While, I'm locked in on my loan rates, but the high insurance and taxes. Because I'm sure you've seen a lot of syndicators have either gotten foreclosed or had capital calls the last 2 years. So, yeah, so that's my philosophy is always, no matter what I was doing, commercial, single family, new construction, get it at a discount because you make your money on the buy.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's been some of the difficult thing, is a lot of us even buying at a discount and underwriting it. And then it still didn't, because that's something that I had happened actually, right? It was 2022. We bought a property. It was a 3 duplexes, 1 parcel in our historic district, right? Great property. I kid you not, Adriel, it appraised, we did a soft appraisal, hey, here's our blueprints, this, that, and the other. Let's go meet. If we did if we refied on this thing today, and it was done like this, what would you guys do? We brought 3 different, people out there. We had $1 million spread on it in 2022.
Wow.
Okay. And I was like, this is the best. But we just
7-figure home run deal.
Home run. All right. This is the one, this is the big one. End up, long story short, the project took a really long time. Okay. Way longer than we expected. Historical district stuff had some permitting issues, took longer. So it went severely over budget, way over time. It's still short-term debt. So our note was due. So we had penalties and all the fees and all the things like that. So before we know it, we were supposed to be into it for about $950K all in with everything. That's paying back everybody, the whole 9. We ended up into it for closer to 1.3 after it was all said and done, because of time, budget, everything else going, rehab costing. And we still we were projecting back then to sell it at low end 2.1, high end 2.5.
Right.
We sold it at 1.3 before closing costs and everything.
Oh, wow.
It was actually 1.1275 is what it sold for. So, but after you pay commissions, closing costs, and everything else, we sold it at a loss. And but we underwrote it in 2022 and said, hey, the rates are here, but we don't think they're going to stay here. They're probably not going to go above. I think we underwrote. It was at the time the rates were 3.5, and we're it'll probably go 5.5 to 5.8. And when on that property, it was 8% is what they were. It was at the time what was coming back.
Wow. And was this a new construction or
no,
just a full gut renovation kind of thing?
And 3 different buildings. Yeah, it was just man. That was but things like that, were happening all over the place, and not just for you and I, but for these the syndicators that are they bought them on 2021 pricing
Bridge
and going,
debt.
hey,
Yeah.
we know that we're looking at a 5-year horizon or 3 or whatever they were doing. And they underwrote it like, yeah, it's at 3.5 now, but we don't think it'll go above 5. And then it goes to 8. And then, insurance is here now. We think it'll go here, but it's not going to go here. Taxes for us. We were at this, I kid you not, they're at $14,000 a year here for those 3. When we went to go sell it, one of the reasons what forced us to sell too was taxes were $40,000.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So you add it all together. It's like, dude, this is we finished it, got it, all the tenants placed. We sold it as a turnkey.
Okay.
And we're like thinking like we'll get all these tenants in, and we'll still be able to burr out and cash flow. We'll be okay. And it didn't, we couldn't make the numbers work anymore.
Right.
That's been a lot. So for anybody's listening, that's not to say you're not going to miss it, but at the same time, there's a lot of wisdom in what you were saying, Adriel. Is like you still buy at a discount because it could have been worse for us.
Exactly.
And it was bad, but it could have been
taking
worse.
a 500K spread and you'd be actually negative 500K now. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, good on you for that, man. So you mentioned now, we talked pre-show, you're like kind of today it's more wholesale, Novation, and like new construction. So what does that look like?
Yeah. So, when those rates were going up, I had 2 full gut renovations as well that, when the market turned on us, luckily they weren't big losses. They were pretty small, they're single family flips and they're still close to downtown Houston. So I'd say I probably lost maybe 15K on each one.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, like you said, was being way too long of a time frame and then way too big of a scope of a rehab. And that's when I pivoted, hey, let's just de-risk the lowest amount of risk. And that was wholesaling. And that's also when Novation was starting to get pretty popular.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, man, Novation and wholesaling, let's just do those 2 things. And then it got to the point where in the market got so competitive where really Novation was the only way to make money because I could offer more to the seller since it was lower risk for me. I mean, even lower risk than really a wholesale. And I was also getting buyers that are paying retail on the market. And I guess if it's a viewer that's watching that's not, aware of Novation, that's basically just like wholesaling it. You get it under contract with the seller, but you're listing it on the MLS, on the market as your exit strategy versus assigning it to a cash buyer. So you're going to get a lot of retail buyers paying retail price. So therefore you can offer the seller more. And I think that's the only reason I've been able to stay afloat these past few years is if you're still stuck on the old, 70% of ARV minus repairs for your offer price, then no seller's really taking your offer at this point because you have people like me doing novations or just regular, open door that are buying these hedge funds that are paying more. Yeah. So that was another pivot, I guess you can say, is from the traditional flipping and wholesaling numbers. I started offering, higher numbers of a little lower spread, but I was okay with a lower spread because my risk was lower since I'm not owning the property. I'm not even turning on utilities. So that's kind of what I've been doing mainly. I still do some wholesales for certain properties. I've wholesaled to New Western, which I'm sure you've heard of nationwide. I don't know how they find their buyers, but they always got buyers that pay crazy amounts, right? So I still do some wholesaling, but yeah, Novation as well is really the main one right now. And not just like your standard Novation. What I like to do is I still go in and make the property sell for top dollar. So I'll always do like a deep clean, professional photos, landscaping. And sometimes I'll do sheetrock work or anything I know that'll pop up in a third-party inspection report when you go and sell the home. Because I have a flipping background, I have the contractors, so my cost is cheaper. So I'll just, I'll spend anywhere from 3 to 10, sometimes 20K on the property as a Novation, which, can be risky because I don't own the home. It's still under the seller's name.
Yeah.
Of course, worst case, I can file a mechanics lien, all that stuff. But really, it's just transparency and being open with the seller, saying, hey, we don't buy at 100% market value. But what I see a lot is these sellers don't want to deal with the home. A lot of times, if it's out of state seller or they're just busy with their own life, me being able to present like a full service, hands off for them, getting it done, they take that over a traditional realtor even because the realtor's not going to do anything. They're going to tell you, hey, you need to go find someone to fix the sheetrock. Right. So me just kind of doing a hands-off service for the seller has allowed me to win a lot of deals even against realtors wanting to list a property to get them, a higher price.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, and the Novation thing, it's if you're doing it the right way, right? Like you said, it's just transparency,
Right.
a lot of disclosures, guys. So make sure that
Yes.
you I will be remiss to not at least say if you're listening, it's a great strategy, but make sure you have a good real estate attorney that can protect you with your paperwork.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people doing it the wrong way right now because they heard it somewhere like on a podcast or they watched a YouTube episode or something. But I will plus that and say for sure 1,000,000% Novation is a phenomenal exit strategy right now, but just do it the right way. That's all.
And even title companies are not say catching on to Novations, but some of the bigger ones are requiring extra, like I said, paperwork, extra documentation.
Yep.
I know Capital Title, nationwide title company, they started in my Beaumont market at least requiring extra forms for the seller to sign for any Novation deals. And some title companies are just dropping them altogether. So definitely, have your ducks in a row before
that's right.
jumping into it.
Don't make an offer for a Novation and you don't know how to transact it. Just make sure you do the homework, get the disclosures, get it yourself right so that you can truly help the people out that you're serving, right? So yeah, I agree 1,000,000%. And then on new construction, you're still doing some of that.
Yeah, so this whole time from when I started in 2016, I was living in the Beaumont, Port Arthur area because that's where my job was, right? And then I knew I wanted to move back out to Houston, or at least, a bigger city, because if anyone's ever heard of Beaumont or Port Arthur, it's really nothing there. I know Janis Joplin's from Port Arthur, and she calls it the armpit of Texas. So, yeah, it's, not a great place to be. But, and the market's very small, right? So if you want to scale to a certain size, there's just not that many houses. I mean, the population, I think, for Beaumont's about 120,000, 150,000, okay, while Houston is, millions.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to move out to Houston. And my last two personal residences in the Port Arthur area, I bought fixer-uppers, right? And even though I fixed them up nice, an older home still has older home problems.
Right.
So I figured, okay, I want to move to Houston, but I'm not going to pay retail value because I'm an investor. And I want a new construction home because I'm sick of just small stuff that comes with older homes.
Yeah.
So really the only option is I'd have to build my own house at a discount. So I actually was marketing lots in Houston because the marketing is still the same. What I'm, wholesaling houses, self-storage complexes, the marketing method is the same. It's just the data, the list that I'm pulling to target changes. So my criteria shifted to lots. I wouldn't say shifted. I was still, running the business, marketing to single family homes, but I was adding in vacant land in there. And I finally found a piece of land in a zip code that, I knew was up and coming. And I was like, okay, I'm cool of living here. And that's kind of how it all started. I bought that really in mind to build for myself to live in. But here in Houston, if your viewers aren't aware, there's a lot of homes that are just like crammed right next to each other because there's no zoning laws. It's very, Wild West out here. And the only way the numbers worked was if I bought a piece of land big enough where I can fit multiple homes, sell out the other homes, and then keep one of them to live in.
Okay.
Because, just the cost of construction and the cost of permits and fees, the economies of scale of building one house doesn't really make sense to be profitable. And at the end of the day, even though it's a personal residence, I want something at a discount, right, to have equity. So I found a piece of land that was 100 feet wide and by 75 feet deep, so 7,500 square foot lot. And the reason I, mentioned the dimensions is because most lots in Houston are 100 feet deep. So if you told someone a 7,500 square foot lot, they would think, okay, 75 feet wide, 100 feet deep. And I bring that up because in that case, you could only fit 3 houses. So a rule of thumb is 25 feet of street access is what a lot will need to build, a narrow townhouse style home. But since this lot was flipped the other way, I could fit 4 houses on the lot compared to a traditional 7,500 square foot lot. So if someone was looking at it just on a price per square foot basis, they would see, 7,500 square foot, I can only pay this much. But I was able to see that, hey, I could fit an extra home here so I can actually make the profit work. So long story short, I bought the lot for $100,000 and I could fit 4 homes. So basically $25,000 per lot. And then I ended up, it was my first time doing new construction. So had some bad people, right? The person doing the subdividing of the lot wasn't the best. The surveyor wasn't the best. Ran into a bunch of issues, but eventually, got the 4 houses built, sold 3 of them, and now I'm living in the 4th one.
Good for you, man. Dude. And it's just, I'm glad you keep saying these different things because, like, I think you've just, over your professional career, of just pivoting, and doing different things, and just staying and keeping your business relevant and keeping your, it's a testament, man, to your success. And I appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not to say I'm not going to never do multifamily or commercial again. It's just not the right time in today's market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think there's wisdom, right? But man, again, thanks for sharing the story with us. This has been a good time. Thanks for hanging out, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. If people want to get a hold of you, reach out in some way, what's the best way for that to happen?
Yeah. So social media is probably the best way. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. It's just my name at Adriel HSU. I'm sure you can leave it in the notes in the podcast.
We'll have in the show notes. Yep. Man, yeah, guys, seriously, go over there and follow him because there's a lot of wisdom that he's been unpacking throughout this whole episode. If you follow along and backtrack, right, and just see the difference of like how he's pivoting, like, it's an incredible story, man. I appreciate that. I really do.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, guys, thanks for hanging out with us again today, and we will see you guys on the next episode. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.